we're actually in week 3. This is the final week of our Godspeed series where we've been learning to pace our lives for maximum joy and impact. Not just joy, not just impact, but for both of those things. And just to recap, because many of you I think have missed some of these, let me just go through a few major concepts that we've been covering the last couple of weeks. The first one is that life and other people will tend to set our pace for us unless we do deliberate things, unless we're intentional about setting our own pace. Have you noticed this? Other people, maybe it's your boss, maybe it's other people around you, maybe it's your kids. Life itself will push you along at a pace you're probably not comfortable with. So unless we take the reins and start doing things to pace ourselves, life will pace us for ourselves. The other thing, this is one. Yes. The second piece is that we've been looking at Jesus because Jesus had this phenomenal way of pacing himself. He always walked the speed of love. Always, always, always. He always walked the speed of light. In other words, what his Father was revealing. And he always walked the speed of right, which is what we're going to talk about today. And the crazy thing about Jesus is he never broke his pace. He was never forced out of his pace of love. He was never forced by anyone else out of his pace that the Father was setting for him as God was talking to him, his Father was talking to him, revealing his steps. He always walked that pace. So Jesus is our model because you and I were getting yanked all over the place, right? Now the third thing, and this is what we talked about last week, is that God actually time releases his guidance for us. This can be incredibly frustrating because what he does is he time releases little bits, one step at a time, maybe 2 steps at a time. And the only way to walk with him or stay in the light, to stay in the light is to actually walk with him, to keep pace with him. So imagine that you're holding a lantern, or God is this lantern, this floating lantern ahead of you. If you lag behind, you're in the dark. If you run ahead, you're in the dark. You turn left, you're in the dark. You turn right. So you kind of have to watch what God is doing all the time. So God actually does this because he wants a relationship with us. Now, as we're talking about the speed of right, how many of you have ever played, maybe when you're a kid, What Time Is It, Mr. Wolf? Anybody? Put up your hand. Could you do this at camp ever? Okay, good. Because have you ever thought about this game? This is a seriously disturbing game. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, you pick one kid, usually the teacher starts, and they got their back turned to you like some, supernatural beast that's going to transform into something and eat the children. So they got your back, and then the other children, they line up with their little shoes, like 20, 30 paces back, and they yell out with this unfeigned innocence, "What time is it, Mr. Wolf?" And of course, the wolf says, 1 o'clock. And now they've all got to take a step towards the wolf. Their little hearts are pounding as they're taking a step toward their doom. And then it's always a kid, like when they go, "It's 6 o'clock. What time is it, Mr. Wolf?" It's 6 o'clock. There's some kid that's going 1, 2, 3. And they're like, "Johnny's cheating." So you have to bring him up to the line with everybody, all the other kids. And there comes this terrifying moment, right? Where it's not 1 o'clock, it's not 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock rock. It is what? Lunchtime! And this beast turns around, devours one of the children. There's blood. That's not how you guys played? Oh, we should have played the other. So they turn around, right, and they play tag, and they grab one of the kids who's now the wolf. So this teaches us that life is not safe at all. But it also teaches us something very important about time, believe it or not. It teaches us that there are actually 2 kinds of time. 2 kinds of time. There's 2 kinds of time? Yes, there's 2 kinds of time. There's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, all that, and then there's lunchtime, right? So the Bible actually doesn't use the term lunchtime, but it does, or second breakfast or any of that. But what it does do is it introduces us to 2 different kinds of time. And this is really important to understand. The first kind of time that the Bible speaks about, and these are actual Greek words in the manuscripts in the New Testament, is what we call chronos time, which is where you get the word chronological. This is the clicking. I guess it does click. The clicking talk, right? Tick-tock. Anyways, the ticking clock, and it's just, time is just unfolding. There's nothing terribly special about it. You can't slow it down, you can't speed it up, although sometimes you seem to warp as you focus on it. But this is just happening kind of all around us, right? You can't really influence chronos time. It's just happening. And most of our days, most of our lives are spent in this just unfolding ticking of chronos. But the Bible also talks about a different kind of time. Sometimes this word is translated as time, other times as a season, other times as opportunity. Those are actual ways that the word is translated. And this we call kairos time. Kairos time is like strategic time. It's like a moment of meaning that's punctuating the chronos that's unfolding. So you can walk through your day and nothing much is happening, and then boom, out of nowhere, something happens. There's a moment that unfolds that has a disproportionate effect on the rest of your life. Now, anyone in this room, whether you're a believer in Jesus or whether you're just checking out faith or whether you don't even believe there's a God, every single one of us have experienced kairos moments. Moments that shape us or shake us. Maybe you can think back, if you're old enough like me. Okay, this is a really fun test. How many of you remember when the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up? Okay, now I remember where I was, literally that was a kairos moment, right? When we talk, I remember that when the Twin Towers fell, 9/11, people were saying this is the day the world changed. I had my doubts then, but it really did change the world and the way we think about security. That was a kairos moment. So these are not all positive. Some of these are negative moments. Some of these are tragedies. Maybe it was a moment when you found out your mom had cancer. Maybe it was the moment when you passed your grade 10, piano recital. Maybe it was graduating. Maybe it was almost drowning in the pool. Whatever it was a moment that shaped you. That life could not be the same. Most of the time when we're just walking through chronos, things don't change terribly much. But then there are these moments, kaboom, right, of chronos. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take out this piece of paper, and we're going to take a few minutes, and we're going to reflect on the kairos moments in our lives. And all of us have them, okay? So what this represents, and please just do the work, because this is really important. You're going to really benefit from this. The horizontal line here represents the passage of time, okay? From the moment you're born till the present moment. And these vertical lines represent sections of your life. All right, so this is kind of what I did, is I actually took the first one, because I'm so old, is like birth to grad, and then the next 20 years or so, and then the last 300 years are probably what happened. No, the last 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, okay, I'm turning 50 in summer. So that's the last decade is in the last little bit there. And here, don't worry too much. I've broken them up into sections so that we don't have to worry about getting the chronology exactly right, because again, we're not doing chronos, we're doing kairos. So what I'd like you to do, though, is I'd like you to reflect about positive and negative moments that shaped you. Because here's the deal. If I were to ask you, share some memories with me from your growing up years, you would not share chronos moments. You'd share kairos moments. You'd share that one birthday party where you got that chainsaw and you finally got revenge on your brother, or you'd share just whatever it is. I'm sorry, that just came out. So now what you're also going to have to do is this center line, the passage of time, also represents the demarcation between positive and negative. So what I'd like you to do is break your life into 3 chunks, okay? If you're 10 years old, break it into 3 chunks. However old you are, break it into 3 chunks. Ironically, where you break it is probably going to be demarcated by kairos moments, probably like graduation. That was what it was for me. Now here's kind of what it looked like for me. I'm going to share my actual sheet with you, except I put it into font, right? So here's in my first 18 years, when I was about 18, I gave my life to Jesus. But somewhere in that first, probably grade 7 or 8, I remember my very first exposure to a pornographic picture. This was massive. It was like something went off, like a bomb went off in my little soul, and that really changed the next little 15 years of my life, something like that. In the next bit, you could see I got married, my kids are born. I had my first job as a pastor. I also experienced some healing some incredible healing in that whole lust area in my life. There was a mission trip. There's also, you'll notice that in the middle, on the negative side, there was a marriage retreat. The reason it was negative is because it actually, we had to look at each other in our, it was terrifying. We had to look at each other, stare each other in our eyes like 6 inches apart. And what God showed me in that moment as I looked into Shauna's eyes, I just saw in an instant how I had been failing her as a husband. And so it was a catastrophic moment in my life. But God actually, here's the thing about Kairos moments, is God actually redeemed that. And if you know us now, I hope that you see that we adore each other and have a phenomenal marriage. But that was literally the turning point, and it started off at this Kairos moment. I will never forget it. So you can see there are positive ones, there are negative ones. So what I'd like you to do is take a few minutes right now and brainstorm in your own life. Just start by making the categories, the sections of your life, and think positive and negative. You don't have to get them all, okay? Just start. What's going to happen is when you start remembering, other things are going to start coming up, all right? So just take a few minutes and grab that information, and we'll need that later. You don't have to show anyone this, by the way. This is completely private. You won't have to report to the group or anything like that. So just take some time to brainstorm. No laughing, Courtney. This is no fun for you. Actually, please have fun. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So as you do this, if you need some help, I've got some stuff up here too. What were the high points, the low points? Which moments were the result of good choices, bad choices? These might help you remember some things. Which of these moments just maybe happened to you? It could have been a car accident, right? Something like that. So just take a few minutes and write some of those down. And I really am going to give you a few minutes. I'm going to stop talking now and just going to stop talking. Bring it down. Okay, so here's the deal. I am not offended if while I'm speaking you go, oh, and you remember another one, you pause to write it down, okay? This is not about me talking. This is about you interacting with God about your own life. All right, so just continue to write as you're hearing me speak, but Jesus, I just pray that you would guide us to remember the moments that matter most and help us to see them through the perspective that you would like us to see them. In Jesus' name. I want to point something out to you as you're doing this work, and you might have come to this conclusion already. Sometimes I've heard talks about the difference between Chronos and Kairos, and we talk about Kairos as something that God initiates, and obviously He does. But we are made in the image of God, and therefore we actually have agency in partnering with God to help create those special moments. Now, you also know that we can also create devastatingly awful moments through our own choices. Moments that shaped or changed everything for good or for evil. You know this. You have the God-given ability to create and to engage with. So as these moments, as God offers you moments, windows of opportunity, the Bible actually says, make the most of every opportunity in Ephesians 5. How many of you have heard that verse? That word opportunity is kairos. Make the most of the kairos. Make the most of the moments that you're given. Because, here's the deal, not all moments are created equal. There are just chronos moments. But God also calls us to partner with Him to make the most of these moments. And actually, like, you can plan a birthday party for someone and make a kairos moment. You can choose to honor someone. You can change their destiny. There are people in this room. I bet you if you thought hard enough, you think of people that invested in you, and it's actually on your timeline. Like, this actually changed me because somebody took responsibility to create a kairos moment for me. This is awesome. Now, if you reflect on your paper long enough, you'll probably also think of other things. And I encourage you to take this with you and pray about what you're seeing. Fill it in until it's full of the moments. And then look at these moments and again, ask Jesus, are there patterns that I need to see? Why? How come they're all negative? Or maybe all the negative ones have to do with me losing my temper. Or maybe there are patterns that I can discern here. But if you reflect long enough, you're probably going to see or think of missed moments, like things that could have been on here but aren't. Moments that you should have seized the opportunity, like not doing the right thing at the right time. If you thought about it long enough, you'd be like, I wish I had actually gone on that mission trip. Because now I've got a family and it's not going to happen. Or maybe you thought, you know what, I wish I had had that conversation because now I realize she was having a terrible week, and if I had taken the time to love on her, maybe she could have had a better week, right? Like, there are times like where you're looking, I should have made the most of that moment. You'll probably also think of rush jobs, right? Like, you're doing the right thing, but at the wrong time. And what did we learn last week? The right thing at the wrong time. It's the wrong thing. So you're gonna look at things that you jumped in, you're so eager, you meant well, and it was the wrong thing. Ironically, there's a story like this in the Bible where King David had the right idea. He wanted to build God a beautiful, kick-butt temple. Like, he's like, I want to make it awesome, and it's going to be the best thing the world's ever seen. And God's like, great idea, wrong time, wrong person. Your son is actually going to do this job. So he actually respected the kairos moment. He didn't push it too hard, all right? What I actually want to focus on today, though, is moments of compromise. Moments where you did the wrong things to try to speed things up, to push things where they weren't ready to go. Maybe these are things where you tried to cut corners, or you tried to fudge a little because the chronos was taking too long, and you wanted to make a kairos out of it. You wanted to make it happen, and so you just kind of put your hands all over it and wrecked it. Or ruined something, or tainted something. This actually happens in the Old Testament to a king named Saul. He's the first king of Israel. God actually hand-picked this guy, and he's got no experience as a king because it's their first king. Nobody's got experience in this nation as a king. And to boot, he inherits this nation that is currently at war with another nation called the Philistines, who happen to be amassing troops at the border and starting to cross the border, making raids. So he's under a lot of pressure very early in his kingship. So what happens is, during this season, because Saul's so new at this, he's actually being advised by a prophet named Samuel, who's been walking with God his entire life. This is a guy who's walking the pace of love and light. And I mean, he's an amazing, amazing man of God. And so the way God structured the kingship, the king is supposed to consult Samuel about what God's will is. And so when they're going to go into a battle, Samuel's going to perform certain sacrifices and things, pray to God. They're going to invite God to bring favor upon the battle. And so with this battle looming, Samuel says to Saul, he says, go down ahead of me to Gilgal, which is kind of like a staging, it would be like their staging area where their troops are beginning to accumulate. He says, go down ahead of me to Gilgal, and I will surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. But you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what you're to do. Now, he's this new king. He's trying to flex his muscles a little bit, show that he's in charge. The enemy is looming. They're starting to press in, and this is what's going on. It's crazy. The Philistines, chapter 13, actually, this is where I'm reading from if you want to come along with me. The Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and camped at Michmash, east of Beth Aven. And when the men of Israel saw that their situation was critical, that their army was hard pressed, they were way outnumbered, they hid in caves and thickets among the rocks and in pits and cisterns. And some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. They defected. They're like, I'm out. This is ridiculous. Somebody's got to take charge, right? And nothing's happening, and we're outnumbered. I'm going to live to fight another day. Saul remained at Gilgal. Good for him. That's what Samuel told him to do. And all the troops with him were quaking with fear. And good on him, he waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. This is getting worse. They're outnumbered, and then now they have even fewer troops. So he said, bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings. And Saul offered up the burnt offering. And just as he finished making this offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Hope he doesn't smell that, right? He's putting out the fire. What have you done? Asked Samuel. Saul replied, well, when I saw that the men were scattering and that you didn't come at this that time, and the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I've not sought the Lord's favor, so I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering. You acted foolishly, Samuel said. Now, it's amazing what lengths we will go to try to convince ourselves that the wrong thing is the right thing. It's amazing. And the reason this story is even in here is because this is us. This is not just Saul. We can't just look down our nose at Saul and go, I would never do such a thing. Right? We're going, nah, that's totally me. Like he's looking around. He's going, the logical thing to do. How many of you ever said this? God gave me a brain. Right? So he's like, look, do his reasons make sense? They make perfect sense. There's nowhere in this logic where Samuel will go, no, perfect sense. But remember what we learned last week. Don't go where you don't have light. Saul went where he didn't have light. Where was the light? God told him through Samuel, wait for 7 days until I show up, and then I'll tell you what to do. You'll get more light when you follow my instructions. So what does he do? He runs ahead. How many of you know it's always the wrong time to do the wrong thing, even if you're doing it for the right reasons? You know those signs I began the service with, those dumb signs? Don't sit on the fence. The fire is hot. This is one of those. The wrong thing's the wrong thing, period. But we need it. We need the sign. We do. And here's what happens next. This is what's truly tragic. You acted foolishly, Samuel said. You've not kept the command of the Lord your God that he'd given you. If you had, this is so painful, your kingdom, or he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. If you know anything about the scriptures, it's okay if you don't. This is a crazy statement. Because who's the big-time king whose lineage runs through the Old Testament? Anyone just yell it out? David. David was not God's first choice. He says right here, Saul, if you had listened, you would have been that guy. Like your entire destiny. This is a kairos moment, Saul. Your entire destiny hinges on what you do in this moment. Whether you bail, whether you rush things, whether you push it, whether you try and make it happen, or whether you walk with me in this moment. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him leader of his people, that'd be David, because you have not kept the Lord's command. Sometimes we look at the little decisions we're making, we think, like, who's really going to know? Right? Like, I can just do I don't even have to put it on the report. I can just skimp here. I can cut this corner. I can cheat a little bit. I'm doing the sacrifice. Like, I'm doing kind of what God said. It's just, this is changing a little bit right over here. But the general, like the gist, and this is what we say to ourselves. It's mostly okay. And hear this, Saul never would have dreamt in a million years that not only his destiny, but the destiny of his entire lineage hinged on this Kairos moment. Wow. Right? He learned the hard way. You can't get to where you want to go by doing things you shouldn't do. You can't do it. Now, here's what you can do. You can be sitting on the edge of a promotion, knowing you're competing with that gal in the corner office, and you can do things to sabotage her, and you can get that promotion. There, I got to where I wanted to go. No, you didn't. Because God's will for you is to get you there with your integrity intact. And now that your integrity isn't intact, that future that he had for you no longer exists. Because now when you arrive there, you're a different person than you were before. Since we live by the Spirit, the Holy Spirit is the source of our life. Again, let's keep in step with the Spirit. Because when you get out of sync with God, you actually are out of sync with life, with your own destiny, with your own purpose. And this is the temptation since the very beginning. Oh, but God maybe didn't foresee this, and if I just take this little itty-bitty fruit, how bad could it be, really? Wow. So here's my question to you. This is the question to me. When you look at your sheet, when you look at this thing, there are probably, if you spent enough time on it, moments that didn't just happen to you, you happened to them. There are probably mistakes that you made, things that you blew, compromises that you made. So here's my question. What if you missed it, blew it, screwed it up, dropped the ball, threw it away, flushed it down the toilet, and done messed up, Ron? If I have to explain that to you, it wouldn't work, so I'm just going to leave it. What do you do? Thank you for that token laughter. I appreciate it so very much. What do you do? I want to offer 3 reality checks for all of us this morning. Because all of us have messed stuff up. All of us have regrets. All of us wish we hadn't done that thing, which led to the other thing, which led to the other thing, and if we could just take it back. But we can't. So here are 3 reality checks. This may hurt a little. Number 1, you knew. Saul knew. He knew that Samuel told him, wait till I show up. Saul wasn't a priest. It wasn't his job to do the sacrifice. He decided, technically it's close enough, but deep down he knew. He knew exactly what he was doing. And if you look long enough into your life, you will look at those moments that changed everything. And instead of going, it's because of this pressure and because of that pressure, and I didn't really know, if you ask yourself honestly, you will realize, no, I knew. I had that it's like that, like a yellow light. Like, it's not a red light, but it's like this. Something in me went, don't do it. Don't do it. Something in me went, I wouldn't go there. Wouldn't make that. You're going to regret that. I knew. Now, the reason this is so important to do is, A, the Bible says that if we confess our sin, I knew, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sin and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. But the other reason is if we don't own our part, we will start blaming God and blaming others. And we will not learn from our mistake, and we are doomed to repeat it. We've got to go, I totally knew, I did it anyway, and this is really important. And the results, the consequences, therefore, are on me. In other words, the second one, don't blame God for the bridges you burn. Don't blame God for the bridges you burn. Now, how many of you have had conversations with well-meaning people who complain, God, why? Why would you allow this to happen to me? And you're listening to their story going, because you made that choice. Like you totally went there. Yeah, but why would God allow? God allow? It's called free will. You want him to make you a robot? Like you chose this, you did this. And no, you didn't know the consequences would be so dire, but you knew what you were doing. And so you can't blame God for this one. Yeah, but why does my life have to be so hard? Because the wages of sin is death. There's no way around it. Don't blame God for the bridges you burn. This last one is going to hurt the most. And you have to stay with me because you will immediately start disagreeing. And I will explain myself, and you will come around and go, good point, Brad. So, we'll rewind the clock now. I hate to break it to you, but plan A is gone. Plan A is gone. You had this dream, and God had this plan for you, right? And now you're going, can we just do it? Can we do a do-over? Can we go back? Can we? And I'm telling you, plan A is gone. Now, some of you are going, I knew it. I've been trying to go back, and I just can't go back. But some of you are going, no, Brad. For the Lord can redeem everything, and He can, right? And I totally agree. But how does He do it? Does He restore plan A, or does He move to another plan? Plan A is gone. You can't go back. Even if there's a broken relationship and you reconcile, it's different than it was. It has to be, because you've both grown or not grown in the process. I have a word for you today. God does not have a plan for your life. And I'm going to prove it. God does not have a plan for your life. Watch. I'm going to quote a scripture that we use all the time. It's on every single grad card. Some of you are already starting to think of what it is. If you don't know what it is, you'll know by the end. And I'm going to include the 2 or 3 verses after it, which we never do, that give it the context it's supposed to have. God does not have a plan for your life. Look, I know the plans. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. God doesn't have a plan for you. He's got thousands of them. I hate to break it to you, but you're not in Kansas anymore. Like plan A was the Garden of Eden. And ever since Eve took that fruit, plan A is long gone. God started with you. Even let's just say God has plan A for your life. You're not on A. You're not on B or T or M or Q or elemental P. You're not on any of those. It's all out the window, folks. Because every mistake we make takes us away from where He wanted us to be. You're like, but then that means it's hopeless. No, because He's got plans. He's got a plan for when you screwed up the first plan. He's got a plan for when you disobeyed. He's got a plan to compensate for X, Y, and Z. He's got plans for you, baby. And they never stop. He's got plans to give you a hope. He's got plans to give you a future. He's got plans for you. Look at this. This is so good. To give you a hope and a future. Now look at this. Then what? Nothing's happened. Yes. you're starting to grasp there's not just one plan. It's not like God had this plan for me, and now I've screwed it all up, and now it's hopeless. There's nothing that God can do with me. He's like, no, I've got plans for you. I got plans coming out of my plans, coming out of my plans. When you start to grasp that I've got a hope, and you've got a future because I've got plans for you, then you'll go, oh, maybe it's not all lost. Then you will call on me. Then you will come and pray to me, and I'll listen. You'll seek me, and you'll find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back from captivity. This was written to people who weren't on plan A because they were in captivity. Why are they in captivity? Because they're already on plan Z, because they had been disobeying so badly that God went, fine then, I've got to let you be taken captive into captivity so this can purge your stubborn independence. And now I'm telling you, to these people in captivity, where all hope is lost, where they've screwed everything up beyond repair, he says, even you, I have plans for even you. Are you hearing this? Please? Are you hearing this? I've got plans, and I will bring you back from captivity. But how many of you know that they're not bringing back to plan A? Now, what many of us assume is that plan A is the best plan. Plan B is like pretty good, but it's not quite as good. Plan C is a little worse than that. So if I'm on plan F, it's like clearly I'm living way below what God wanted for me. And God's just like, I'm just lucky to even have a plan at all. It's not door number one, it's not door number two. I'll just go over, if I could just take the pencil by the door. But how many of you know God's plans for you always restore you? No matter what has happened, He's still got a best for you, and He's way better at best than you are. Yeah. So there is hope for you. There is a future for you. He's got plans for you. It doesn't matter how bad you screwed it up. What matters is that you shake yourself loose of the stupor you're in and go and look to the Son, like we were singing. Look to Jesus and go, I need your plans. I've been screwing this thing up so badly. Please take me from where I am. History is full of glorious Plan Z stories, Z stories. In fact, those are the only kind you've ever heard. When you read these stories of these amazing miracles and all these things, you think, that's Plan A. That is so far off of Plan A. Like, we're not anywhere close to that. God's working with what He's got, and even that is so glorious. So, you look at that sheet of paper of yours, and if you've got the guts, I dare you to populate it this afternoon or later this week with failures. And I want you to ask God, so what's the plan, but can you restore, what are your plans for me? Give me a hope again. Give me a future again. Help me to look to you again. I'm looking to you. I'm talking. You promised that if I do this, you'll listen, and that if I seek you, I'll find you, if I seek you with my whole heart. So here I am. I want back on the path. And the moment you do that, you're back on track. Do you realize that? The moment you turn to Jesus and look to Him, you're in step with Him. You're exactly where you should be. No, not everything might be fixed yet. You still might have all kinds of consequences to work through. Not the point. The point is, are you with Him? Are you walking with Him? It's exactly where you should be, no matter where you've been. Oh, that's good news. Come on. Let's give God a thank you. Thank you, Jesus, that there's plans. So good.